Hey everyone, Adam here, So Was Your Podcast. Got a movie review for you today. I got a chance to check out an early screening of The Last Thing Mary Saw. The Last Thing Mary Saw was written and directed by Edoardo Vitaletti. It stars Elizabeth Fuhrman, Rory Culkin, and Stefanie Scott. It's an 1800s set movie about a girl telling a story about what happened to her family. You don't really get the whole thing until the very end. It's done mostly in flashback, which was a little bit of an unnecessary gimmick, but the striking image of Mary telling the story is pretty shocking, so it makes you want to hang in to see what actually came about. But I believe the flashback narrative could have been taken out and things could have just played from beginning to end, and then the Inquisition coming in later, and it would have been pretty much the same story. So I guess you can't really knock it because it doesn't take away from the movie, but it also was an unnecessary layer that didn't really add much to the movie. The production of The Last Thing That Mary Saw, the production value all the way through, is top-notch. It looks great, the high def was great, the set pieces, the settings, it looks like they went to a historic village and used it, so if they created sets to replicate that, kudos to the set department. The costuming was on point, the acting, the accents, it was all done just enough to be the 1840s without going so far as to be a cartoon version of the 1840s or a caricature. And there was no one person that stood out as just chewing it up or ruining it with an accent they couldn't quite pull off, which happens all too often in these period set movies. The use of lighting. I mean, a lot of times there's just a fire or a candle or the moon that's lighting a scene, but given the high quality of the video, I was never, getting up close to my screen or shielding it from whatever ambient light was in the room. You try to watch these things in a light-controlled environment to really get into the movie and replicate that theater setting. Even without being able to do that perfectly, you're never struggling to see what's going on. It's all right there. It's not just this dark mess. The dark is there for the mood and the tone of the movie. And speaking of the mood and the tone, the subtle use of score throughout and then long stretches of no score and sometimes no score and no dialogue. The silence is deafening, to use an old expression. It's really well placed and really well crafted. That kept me going. I mean, it's only about 90 minutes, I think, even just shy, but it's a bit dry, and there's just something about this time period that I just have a hard time sitting through, and that's not a knock on the movie themselves, that's my own personal preference. But that being said, they did do a great job given the setting that that the story was set in. I was going to say that they were stuck in, but Edoardo wrote it, so he wasn't stuck anywhere. It was his movie. There's a bit of, I want to say, social commentary to it as well, and it really spoke to me on a level maybe a little bit deeper than religion itself. I'm not here to knock anyone's religion. That's your own personal preference. It doesn't matter to me. The zealotry and the damage that a cult kind of mentality can have. Sorry that I'm doing some Adam West speak here, but I'm trying really hard to pick my words. I'm not looking to offend anybody or crap on anyone's religion or anything like that, but this movie is based around somebody who's really just trying to live their life, and religion is just not having it. And in the 1840s, in a poor farm town somewhere in New York State, it was kind of religion at its worst, I would say. It is very much that cult mentality. It kind of gives you vibes in the beginning of the early days of the Salem witch trials, which is, one of those black eyes on our early culture that you hear about a lot. So there's a little bit of those vibes, but this is not a movie about witchcraft. I would say this movie is grounded in reality, and through the imagination, the stresses, and the justifications of the main characters. Maybe not justifications as them lying to themselves knowingly, but trying to come up with something to justify why the actions took place and what they literally believed. Because if you are raised in something like this and it's so steeped, it's part of you, you would believe it, even if it seems fantastical or far-fetched from our point of view, the audience sitting in our, modern environments watching a movie, knowing it's a piece of entertainment and it's not real life. Transporting yourself to the character's point of view, a lot of these superstitious, borderline or supernatural things could feel very real. And the movie does a great job of walking that line where I feel confident in telling you that it's grounded in reality, but it definitely likes to dip a toe in the waters of the supernatural. There's a good amount of stuff there that keeps the supernatural bit running, but you're in it for the character, which you've heard me say in other videos is something Stephen King does so well. So when those vibes started coming in, it grabbed me even further. So the quality was there, the acting was there. It is a cohesive story. You do get everything by the end of the movie. You're not left scratching your head wondering what the heck just happened. But there's also not, you don't see every twist and turn coming a mile away. This is not a mystery. You're not trying to figure something out. You're just being told a story. But it's still nice to not know every last thing that's going to happen before it does. Otherwise, what are you really hanging on for? I mentioned the time period both of the movie takes place in and us in our modern setting now. And given our modern setting now, looking back on how Mary and Eleanor are treated in their time period, it is pretty shocking to watch, and at some points, I would say difficult to watch. And again, I don't mean that as a knock against the movie. It's difficult to watch because Edoardo and the acting and the cast did a great job making the movie. The uncomfortableness of it is kind of the point for those scenes. The uncomfortableness kind of makes us look in the mirror as a whole. I'm not saying an individual, obviously, but as a whole and as to what we're doing and kind of how far we've come in a relatively short amount of time. But it's just this thing when you get sucked into an idolatry or into a cult mentality, or you make something you don't fully understand your identity, it just leads to problems. And this movie does a great job of getting that across, because all of the horror and torment and terrible things that happen in the movie could have all been avoided with more of a modern mindset and a better understanding of people in general. And this is the 1840s, but if you look back even 50 years, we've grown by leaps and bounds. And I don't mean to get on a soapbox here about it all, but it was just something that Edoardo's voice in the script did really powerfully, and the actors managed to get across without clunky exposition. I mean, this is a movie that really uses its dialogue sparsely. So I've talked a few times now of the quality of the acting and the cast, and I've mentioned Mary and Eleanor, which are character names. I did mention up front who the stars were, but Mary is played by Stefanie Scott, who, along with Eleanor, played by Isabelle Fuhrman, carry a huge portion of this movie on their shoulders. Then you have Judith Roberts, who's just credited as the matriarch. She's the one where she is a real person, but that's kind of where the supernatural part of it comes in without going too far into spoilers, and she does an outstanding job. I didn't see a trailer for this movie before I got to watch it, but I imagine that at least her voice is all over that trailer, and if not, it was a missed opportunity. Rory Culkin, I don't want to tell you what he's credited as because it might be something of a giveaway, but he does a great job in the movie as well. He has a limited but important role, both for the characters and for the audience. So, minor spoiler, but keep on the lookout for him. All in all, I'd say I enjoyed watching The Last Thing Mary Saw, and using the word enjoy seems kind of strange when you see the movie and know what it's about. It's a bleak movie. It is emotionally investing. I almost said it's tough to get through, but that would make it sound like it wasn't well made, because it's incredibly well made. It's just heavy subject matter. It's not something you might be in the mood for all the time. You're not going to pop it in after a hard day at work or something like that. But if you want a movie that has a ton of tension, that is kind of a masterclass in minimalist in as far as dialogue and score and things of that nature goes, this is it. Edoardo Vitaletti, hopefully I'm getting his name right, was not a household name for me, but I'm curious now to see what else he's done, because he definitely knows what he's doing, so I imagine this was not his first outing making a movie. The somewhat bad news for you guys right now is it might be a little while before you can see The Last Thing That Mary Saw. It's currently doing a film festival circuit. It will be released on VOD eventually, limited theatrical release. But add it to your list of 2021 movies to see, because it's one worth seeing. It's not the same thing you see every day. It's not the same thing you generally get from a lower budget horror movie. And again, that term, loose, more of a thriller. But The Last Thing Mary Saw was... I'd give it the recommendation. It was a good movie, definitely worth seeing. So, like I said, add it to your list. I'd like to thank the fine folks at Arachnid Films for giving me the opportunity to check out this screener and to share my experience of the movie with you guys. Make sure you like and subscribe. We've got a lot more new movie covers, a lot more interviews. I got a couple unboxings still to do, still to edit. Got a lot more stuff coming your way. You're not going to want to miss out, so make sure you like and subscribe. Also, make sure you listen to So Is Her Podcast every single week, wherever you get your podcasts. SoIsHerPodcast.com is your resource for reviews, recommendations, videos, merchandise, and more. So Is Her Podcast can also be found on Patreon, where for as little as $1 a month, you get multiple monthly bonus shows. We love hearing feedback, so drop us a note in the comments, leave us something on social media. All the accounts will be found after the show and in the show notes. And on a more personal note, a good friend and I have an ongoing comedy comic series out. It's called Social Studies. It's a slice-of-life comedy comic. We write it like a sitcom. We take all those elements, try to turn them on their head, and jam it through the prism of the 90s cartoons that we grew up on. It's a lot of fun. It's a fast-paced story, bright colors. We took a lot of inspiration from, say, the Nicktoons, Recess, Ed, and Eddie, those earlier Cartoon Network shows, because we were the perfect age for that, 12 to 14 years old, I'd say. It's all there. You get a big nostalgia hit, but we've also been getting great feedback from our younger readers who are maybe going into high school or just started high school, where this is kind of a skewed look in the mirror. I don't want to say it's an exact reflection of real life, because we kind of make light of some things, make other things bigger. The comic is part wish fulfillment, part autobiographical, and part what we could tell ourselves at that age if we were given the opportunity. So check all of that out at socialstudiescomic.com. We have a crowdfunding campaign coming in about a week, which will be an awesome place for you to jump on board, catch up on the whole story before Chapter 2 comes out. Once again, the socialstudiescomic.com. Thanks.